Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Open Call webinar by InterConnect. Today, we will talk a little bit more in detail about the interoperability framework of the project. Well, today I have here with me Fabio Coelho, researcher from InterConnect coordinator in STEC, and Milenko Tosik, the Director of Innovation of Bislov Labs. Myself, I am Raquel Carro, Project Manager at Funding Box. We are the partner of the project, handling all aspects of the open call. So what are we going to talk about today? First, I will present a little bit the main aspects of the project, and then a little bit of how the open call is set up and its main aspects. And then we will go in more detail on the technical parts of the project and the open call, so all applicants have more details on these aspects. And then at the end, there will be a few minutes for questions from all attendees, of course. You can write them in the chat, and we will try to answer them. So just a little introduction. InterConnect stands for Interoperable Solutions Connecting Smart Homes, Buildings, and Grids. And it's part of this project are 50 entities of the IoT and energy domains. They cover 11 countries, and as you can see here, there's a huge diversity, right? From research and development organizations to associations or distribution system operators and users, retailers, and so on. Also, the project has 7 large-scale pilots. You can see here its geographical distribution, and they involve testing in very diverse settings and more than, I think, 3,000 testers. What is the objective of the project, of the open call in turn? It's to benefit the end users by incorporating innovation from third parties, from smaller players, so we can democratize a little bit the efficient energy management in energy. So here we can see a little bit the general panorama of the open calls of the project. Now we have the Interoperable-by-design Prototypes open call open until the 26th of July. All the open calls are addressed to SMEs and startups. And for the next year, first quarter and mid-year, we have 2 open calls addressed to demonstrators. So now we are focusing on recruiting prototypes, which will receive up to 150,000 euros and a support program of 7 months. The scope of this call is to try to get beneficiaries that will develop and test interoperable applications or services for smart homes and grids. And in the case of the interoperable by adoption demonstrators calls for next year, this will be the adapting and testing of applications and services. In this case, the amount to be received is up to 50,000 euros and 4 months support program. There will also be an expression of interest for associated pilots that will open in the coming months. So here you have the main aspects of the call, like for example the deadline, the number of projects that will be supported, and the link for the application. What are we looking for? Okay, we are looking for SMEs and startups that are established in the European Union and associated countries that want to make use of this interoperability framework of the project, right? The TRL we are looking for is between 5 and 7, and the selected applications will be able to test their applications in the pilots of the project. Okay, so how are we going to do this? Okay, we are looking for novel interoperable applications and services that want to test within the project, that have a clear societal and economic value, and that can help us expand the ecosystem of the project. For this, we have designed 5 main challenges that the applicants should address in their applications. Not only one, they can address more than one challenge, but at least one. Okay, so you can see here semantic interoperability for smart homes and buildings, interoperable services for demand-side flexibility, and semantically interoperable services for smart grids and energy communities, electric mobility, and energy marketplaces and incentive mechanisms. What else? Okay, here you can see where you can find more information about the open calls in regards to its technical part, let's say, not the administrative or the documents needed, but the technical content. During the prototype development, the beneficiaries should be able to get familiar with the project ontology, the semantic interoperability layer, the service store of the project, and the certification process. They will need to onboard their services to the service store, deploy a generic adapter, and work on the integration with the pilots. Optionally, they can utilize InterConnect P2P marketplace and enablers based on DLT. Regarding the support that the chosen beneficiaries will receive, as mentioned, it's a 7-month support program. You can see there that they will receive technical, business, and specialized mentoring, and a grant of up to 150,000 euros. As mentioned again, the applications will be tested at least in one of the project pilots. You will see that in the application you are asked to choose one of the pilots. Regarding the application, again, there you have the link, but in the comment section of this webinar you can find also the access. A few recommendations for the application. Please read all the related documents. You have the guide for applicants, that it's a Bible of the open call. You have the frequently asked questions, that it's updated with the new questions that we are receiving, and an example of the agreement that you will have to sign if you get selected. Please send the application, fill the application in English, and there you have a few helpful tips to take into account. Here you have the different sections of the application form. You will have to complete all of them. You can send us your questions if you have trouble with any of the information contained there. Through the help desk, you will find the link in the application, sorry, at the end of this presentation, but also in the link that has been previously mentioned during the presentation. How do we ensure that we are selecting the best applications? Okay, here you have a step-by-step description on how we do this with the help of external experts. You can find a detailed description of each step in the guide for applicants. What else? If you want to interact with other applicants or interested parties, or talk to us and publish your questions or your comments, you can follow the InterConnect community so we can connect. Okay, and now Fabio Coelho and Milenko will present a little bit this interoperability framework. So, Fabio, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Let me just switch into presentation mode. Okay, not this, like this. Okay, so good morning, everybody. I hope that you can see my screen. Can you just confirm me, Raquel?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So good morning, everybody. My name is Fabio Coelho from InterConnect. We are the coordinators of the H2020 InterConnect project. Together with us is also Milenko Tosic from Vislor Labs Foundation, which is the leader of Work Package 5 in InterConnect, leading all of these technical developments that led us into the Semantic Interoperability Framework, which is the key exploitable result, or one of the key exploitable results that we want to provide within InterConnect. And it's, in this case, for these open calls, one of the central pieces that the newcomers, the applicants that get selected will get to use to test in sake of having their prototypes made interoperable according to InterConnect. Okay, so what we will see during this webinar is a presentation of what technically the Semantic Interoperability Framework is, what are its components. Here you can already see a sneak peek where we will discuss some of the details about the key components of the framework, that is, so the service store, the knowledge engine, our adapters, which we call generic adapters, and also the peer-to-peer marketplace enablers. So this set of tools that will enable you to unlock interoperability for your services and concepts. Okay, so afterwards we will also go to an overview of the support materials. So this also goes in line with what Raquel was saying about checking all of the technical documentation. So we will use also some part of this presentation to navigate a little bit through our GitLab wiki page, which is our technical guide that you can also check. As of today, it's made publicly, so you don't need access to check that, and also relate a little bit from the concepts that we will cover during the presentation, its technicalities, and where you can find this information in detail. And of course, in the end, we do have some space for Q&A, which I hope that we will get there some interesting questions on your side. Okay, so kickstarting with this presentation, what is actually InterConnect doing? So this H2020 project is deemed to work within interoperability, and we particularly want to work with the semantic interoperability. Okay, so what we are trying to demonstrate here, and invite you to join our calls to test, is to actually deploy a cross-domain interoperability capable and enabled framework, okay, which is composed by a set of these four main tools that I have just presented, in order to deploy a scenario that will enable us to demonstrate interoperability in a cross-domain approach without necessarily resorting to a central platform. Okay, So this is something that distinguishes apart from other interoperable initiatives and other interoperable approaches current in the present and in the past that have tried to accommodate this. So what we do is that we provide a set of tools that will enable us, that are part of this framework, and that we will be able to deploy in a different way. This is something that also we will cover how to do this and work then together with you if you are selected for the support project, the support program, in order to make your solution interoperable and tested it. So as I said in the beginning, the focus of our interoperability approach is to go full semantic, okay? And in order to do this, we are using something that is called an ontology. So the ontology is a description of the domain that we will be using, and that will support how we will map our data, how we will interact with the rest of the ecosystem, particularly the pilots. And in particularly, InterConnect is exploring an ontology which is called SAREF, that has been supported by the European Commission, and in which we are using as the groundwork for describing the domain within InterConnect. So actually, to be part of this demonstration, and this is something that we'll also cover a bit, partners and newcomers via these open calls will have to undergo a process that we call the SAREFization process, which is actually a methodology that will enable you to move from what is currently a synthetic data modeling. So I'm sure that many of you and many of your services now offers some APIs with syntactic data modeling encompassing the endpoints of their APIs. So we will now move from using the syntactic data modeling approach to go full semantic. And in order to do this translation, there is this process which we call SAREFization process, where we are using a way to move from data modeling into semantic graph pattern representations supported by our ontology SAREF. And this will be one of the cornerstones of using this framework. So we will cover how this process looks like, and how we will use this in order to facilitate interconnection. Okay. So InterConnect is also providing some support, and this will also be done via these support calls for the open calls, this set of tools that the framework is, and this will enable a process and also to streamline how new services, so in this case your services that you will be developing if selected for the open calls, and how they will relate with the services and the demonstrations that are already part of InterConnect as part of one of our seven large-scale pilots that are now on way to start. And moreover, InterConnect is also working on the technical front as part of the framework in order to be complementary on the terms of security and data privacy, and not to, of course, hinder what might already be in place for your services and for your prototypes. So we want, of course, to be complementary on this front and not to disrupt this process. So what you can see here on this slide is actually an overview, high-level architecture view of what is the Semantic Interoperability Framework. We will see ahead and go into more detail about each one of the separate components. And as you can see here in this high-level architecture representation, we can see a set of digital platforms here depicted in green and in blue. So digital platform 1 and digital platform 2. This is, of course, what is usually the way and how we depict this. We can see that these digital platforms have digital services, and that these digital platforms often are related with IoT devices, either for sensing and actuating purposes, and it can even be the case for digital platforms that are that only have services that explore data, so without necessarily devices attached to it. We do see that as part of our framework, we do have the semantic interoperability layer. Okay, this is one of the key components of our framework that will be accountable for exchanging data in this new semantic and interoperable way. Okay, we do see attached to the semantic interoperability layer and related to each one of the services that we depict here a box stating adapter. Okay, so under this interoperability framework, and also as something that has become regular within this type of approaches, we provide an adapter that is actually a middleware server that will be able to link your service, your digital platform, and will become the gateway to use our interoperability framework. Okay, and then on top you also see a set of boxes starting from the left-hand side, depicting the InterConnect service store, which is not only the front end for our framework, but also the catalog of services that we do have available at the time, covering all of our pilots. Okay, and where you will be able, once onboarded onto this platform, the details of each one of the services, what are their capabilities, and what are the semantic way to interact with them via our adapter. So this will not only be your first place into getting to use the interoperability framework, but will also be your tool that through the process you will use in order to consult and check information, in order to interact with other services via these features of the service store, which we will see ahead. Afterwards, we do have, so the second box from the left-hand side, we do have the peer-to-peer marketplace. So this is yet another tool that is part of the framework that is in essence a distribution of a DLT. So in the case of InterConnect, a distribution of a specialized instance for Hyperledger Fabric blockchain, okay, where we will be able to provide you ways in order to deploy distributed prototypes to become interoperable under our framework. Okay, and then we do have a set of tooling that is included on our framework that will allow you to provide some control in terms of security in order to have fine-tune who can access your service and who can interact with it. Part of the objective of the framework is not only for you to test the technologies and the tools of the interoperability framework, but also to interact with other services that are already there as part of our pilots, as I was saying. And so in this sense, the services that you will develop and the interaction that you will have will make your platform, your service, yet another service in our ecosystem. So there will, of course, need to be some guidance on how you will be able to interact with others and what you will allow others to do while interacting with you. And finally, some administrative tools in order for you to fine-tune and provide all of this consent into who can interact with you and how you can interact with others. So we will now detail further how each one of these components is built and what it is beyond this overview that I have just presented. So we will start with the service store. So technically, the service store as a web-based application is divided into a backend and a front end. Okay, so this is actually where you will be able to log in, create an account that will unlock you access to our framework, and where you will be able to check and navigate through all of the services that InterConnect has available throughout each one of the pilots. So as you can see, Technically, this component follows a standard approach for this type of web application. So we do have a backend that supports all of our functionalities, including the possibility for you, for the sake of testing your services, we make available a Docker environment so that you can deploy your services after the interoperability approach of InterConnect has been put in place into a Docker container in order for testing. And we do have here, as part of the service store, the front end side of it, where you will be able to interact and activate the functionalities for register, for onboarding the service, to certify your service as part of the process, and to navigate, of course, all of the services that we do have available. So this is a sneak peek on the looks of the InterConnect service store. Each one of these boxes is a service that is available. Of course, the sneak peek, the snapshot that we are seeing is a test version of the services in itself. Once you onboard, you will be able to connect with the actual services that are now being deployed on the pilots, and where we can see at the leftmost part of the screen all of the possibilities and menus that we do have on the service store. So this will follow a very streamlined approach, where you will be granted, by creating an account, to a profile, where you will register your own service, where you will include the details on the capabilities that your service has, namely its name, its description, its purpose, its category on how this service is. So is it a service that will provide flexibility? Is it a service that will provide comfort-wise capabilities and features? Is this any other sort of service? So this will enable a categorization of services for others to navigate and to interact with you. And most importantly, the service store offers what we call the Knowledge Explorer, which is a pane within the service store that allows you to check on a semantic annotation how can you interact with other services. So this is related with the process that I was just stating at the beginning, the servitization process, which we will understand a little bit better ahead how it looks like. The second component that we would like to highlight is actually the focal point of the InterConnect semantic interoperability framework, is the semantic interoperability layer. So that you can see here depicted in the center of the image. So actually, what we deploy underneath the semantic interoperability framework is a set of distributed enablers, so our adapters, that actually deploy a distributed network that attach to each one of the services, and that will be able to sponsor the data exchange between services. Okay, so this is where we make a split from what is currently an approach for this type of frameworks, by deploying a centralized platform that will essentially enable how the data exchange is handled. Here in InterConnect, we go fully distributed, and so there is no central platform that is accommodating this exchange. So actually, this semantic interoperability layer is built on the basis of a component that was developed within the project that is called the Knowledge Engine. And the Knowledge Engine unlocks this distributed mesh of connectors, so our adapters, that will enable to do a couple of things. So being the first one, the capability to exchange data in a semantic way. So this is where we will move from using a synthetic data model that usually is built by using JSON payloads to build the messages and to do the exchange, but we'll rather move to use a new construction that is called a graph pattern. So for those of you that are already acquainted with using ontologies and particularly SAREF, we will move from using JSON payloads as part of standing and creating a data model, and we will start to use these graph pattern representations that are in essence triplets, okay, that usually are built using RDF annotation. So what will also the knowledge engine allow is for these sets of data, so for the capabilities of your own service to be disseminated within this network, and using the annotation of the ontology, unlock the possibility for you to relate with other services, but also for others to relate with your service, and hence allow the exchange to happen. So it is the set of these capabilities and the fact that we will be using semantics that will unlock us something that will be one of the things that we would like also to test during our project, and particularly under these open calls, which is the capabilities to use reasoning. So what is reasoning? So reasoning is the capability of using these semantics that we will be using under this project to go beyond what the data is actually expressing. So we will be using modeling that will strictly allow you to state what type of data you want to interact with. So what is your service doing? What is your service trying to exchange? And reasoning will enable us to use that type of information in order to go further into make inference on what data is and how these relationships are being extracted. Okay, so of course this is testing that is being done, so we will try to work together with you and also to try to make this type of feature go beyond. The next component that we have within the InterConnect Interoperability Framework is the adapter in itself. We call it also the generic adapter. And technically, this is a server that you will have to deploy together with your own service or your own digital platform. So in practice, this works as a gateway. That in this case, technically, it is built on Java, so it is a Java container that you will have to deploy together and close to your service and digital platform that exports an API, and this will actually become the first gateway where you will interact with in order to expedite all of these exchange and to integrate with other services. So further along, we would like to disclose a little bit what is part of our terminology. And this is important because you will be in contact with this terminology once you get into the wiki page that we will overview quickly also during this presentation. And so this will become a first hands-on approach on our terminology. So what you can see here on this slide altogether is what we call the generic adapter that you can see on the top part, that is actually composed of two main things. So in green, the REST API controller. So the generic adapter exports an API made of RESTful web services that you will be able to interact with this component, and together with it, it includes what we call a knowledge engine runtime. So if you relate to the previous slide that we have that we have showed, we do have this decentralized component that is called a knowledge engine, that is the one accountable for handling all of the semantic annotated data exchange between each one of the services. But since it is distributed, it actually lives within each one of the instances of this adapter, so the generic adapter. So this means that under InterConnect, each one of the digital platforms or services that are made interoperable will need to host at least one instance of the generic adapter. And I say at least once because we are flexible on the deployment options that we allow. And so there will be a process in the beginning for us to also guide you through on the way that you want to deploy each one of these tools in order to test this interoperability. So the generic adapter has its own API and has internally an instance of this knowledge engine that will then be part of this wider mesh of adapters, and that will enable us to exchange the data. On the lower part of the image, connected to the generic adapter, you do see a digital platform that here is represented here in gray. So this will be your digital platform. This will be your digital service with its own API. So in principle, we follow this approach where our separation is that we consider that you will develop a service or a digital platform as your prototype. In principle, it will have an API that, of course, you use to interact with the functionalities of your own service and digital platform. And this is where conceptually your service, your prototype will then interface and integrate with our generic adapter. Together, so the group of your digital platform with its functionalities and our generic adapter that the framework makes available, this group is what we call within InterConnect the service adapter or the service specific adapter. And this is important because you will see that it is actually this group of things, so the generic adapter and of course your own service, your own digital platform, that will become part and the key part of the work that you will have to develop in order to make your prototype interoperable with our framework. So what we are now seeing on screen is actually a sneak peek of the capabilities that the generic adapter is the main gateway towards the InterConnect Semantic Interoperability Framework allows. So what we can see is that the generic adapter will provide us this unified and secure REST API that will become the interface for your service to interact with the API. So in order to push data through it, in order to collect data from other services, and also to provide the integration with the rest of the components, namely the service store or the catalog of digital services that are already there. It also provides ways within the generic adapter capabilities to make your service available as part of our test Docker engine runtime. So as I said in the beginning, our service store allows for this space for you to test a prototype of your digital service before going into the demonstration part. So this is an optional feature. Of course, you don't need to use it if you don't want to, but it's an optional feature that will become interesting and flexible in order for you to test these capabilities if you do not have a dedicated infrastructure on the side of your institution to make all of these tests. The generic adapter also provides you these ways via its internals and particularly via its API on how to handle all of the communication to push information, as I was saying, to the wider framework and also to reach other services. And finally, but not less importantly, it provides ways for authentication and authorization for the wider interoperability framework. And so what we do have here is actually a set of two enablers, the store and the adapter. So the adapter living together and side by side with what is the technical deployment of your digital platform and service, becoming this gateway for you to interact with, and the store as this front end for the wider interoperability framework that allows you to control who will have access to your service, or on the other way around, for you to request access to other services and to enable and unlock these match. So the most important part of this presentation is possibly this next set of slides. So how will you or what you will need to do if you get selected and if you want to integrate your service with the wider interoperability framework. So this is where this wording that I was just presenting in some slides ago becomes important. So actually, you will have to accommodate an SSA implementation. So the SSA being the service specific adapter. So what we do see here in this picture is actually a representation of, on the left-hand side, a service. So consider this left-hand side portion, the service that you have and that you will make interoperable. In the center part, we do have represented here our semantic interoperability layer. So that is the knowledge engine, so the component that is actually accountable for the exchange of information within our framework in a decentralized configuration. And on the right-hand side, a little bit smaller, another service. So this is important because the philosophy of the framework is that we enable interoperability service to service or service to services, okay? And so we do have here this representation. So going back onto the focus of the left-handmost part of the screen, what we have here represented are three main components, as you see, or three main building blocks, let me put it in that way, as we see in this orange box on the left-hand side of the screen. So in green, we have represented here the service logic. So actually, this is your own service, your own prototype, okay? Its features, usually with its API to provide the link with it. So this is true if you already have a service developed and you want to test interoperability of that service, or this will become the first point for you in order to create a prototype of a service and afterwards making it interoperable within our approach. On the center of this orange box, we do have the service-specific adapter. And in practice, the service-specific adapter will be the technical integration point of your service, your platform, with the semantic interoperability framework. It will be the client that you will have to develop and for which we have, you will be able to have access to some test implementations of this. It will become the client to our adapter, the generic adapter that you also have represented there. Together, these three building blocks form also what we call a knowledge base, okay? So the knowledge engine and our semantic interoperability layer, part of our framework, is actually a composition of several knowledge bases, okay? So you can relate that your service, your prototype will have at least one knowledge base where it will accumulate data, where it will accumulate features, and that afterwards will integrate with others into the exchange in itself. So after this integration, or during the integration, a couple of steps are part of it, and they are described here in this slide. So you will have to go into the service store and to register your service. So it's a form that you go there and fill up the information that is requested. You will have to afterwards download our generic adapter and instantiate it. So that means to deploy this service that is the generic adapter, ideally within your infrastructure or where you have your prototype or where you will have your prototype deployed. And afterwards, there are a couple of steps that are actually currently automated by putting the generic adapter that will allow to register it within the wider semantic interoperability framework. So this means that your service will be made discoverable and announced to others. The generic adapter will also register here what we call then the knowledge base. So that is the capabilities that you will that you have integrated. And afterwards, most importantly, something that we have not yet discussed that we will see ahead, we will also need to register via the generic adapter what we call our knowledge interactions. So this is where we start to divert from a regular approach of other frameworks, and we go fully semantic. Okay, so under our approach, the service that is interoperable no longer exports directly an API per se, but we will export a set of capabilities that will enable others to interact with it. So this means that instead of exporting an API, we will export a set of capabilities. So this is the knowledge interactions that will enable us to do one of four things: to ask for information, to answer information, to post information, and to react to information. So this builds the four types of knowledge interactions that we do have made available for all services. So that is the ask, the answer, the post, and the react. So this is also important as you will be related to these topics under the actual documentation. And afterwards, these knowledge interactions, where our semantic data representations, our graph patterns, as you will see an example ahead, will live, we will then need to feed them with actual data from the services that will sponsor the exchange with the wider set of services. So conceptually, this is a zoom in of this box that we were just showcasing. We see here relationship with what is the service-specific logic, the service-specific adapter that you will develop, and the generic adapter. So the generic adapter will be this server that will proxy to the rest of the framework. The service-specific adapter will be the client to our generic adapter that you will be required to integrate with your service. And the device or service logic will be your service per se. And what is important to state here in this image is actually what is the break in terms of interoperability. So from what moment we are considered interoperable. And I would like you to refer to these purple, blue, and black boxes that you do see here represented in this image. So if we look to the left-hand side on our legacy device service logic, we do see this purple box. And this actually represents the level where your service, your API stands. So this is where your technical integration will occur from your service to what is the construct of your service-specific adapter. Then, from the service-specific adapter box in the middle towards the generic adapter, we do see these blue boxes, which will represent the place where we are, where we will be now semantically interoperable. So this means that our data from our services will now be represented in a graph pattern representation. So there is a set of triplets in RDF annotation that will be represented using our ontology, so in this case SAREF, that will be used to communicate with the wider ecosystem of InterConnect. And then on the right-hand most part of the screen, we do see this black box, which is something that then becomes internal to the use of the framework, using our internal protocol to disseminate this information. So your integration and your contact points will be from your service to the specific adapter and to the generic adapter. Okay. So going a little bit into the details of the SSA functionality, okay, so this is where we will be able, as a service developer, to integrate and to develop what is the functionalities. So this means to select from each one of these knowledge interactions that I stated, the ask, the answer, the post, and to the react, how the capabilities of your service will be mapped to each one of those, to a multiple set of those, and how you will be able to transform the representations of a syntactic data model that you probably will have by now. So that is a set of JSON messages exposed, for instance, via RESTful interface, and you will start to use what is our graph pattern representation of data and mapping data into those patterns themselves. Okay, so this is where the focus of your work will be in terms of making your service interoperable. Afterwards, and to close this component, the components of the framework, there is the peer-to-peer marketplace component that you see depicted there. And this component will be particularly important for those of you that will apply to have a service that is distributed in nature, or that is immediately seeking to have an implementation made interoperable using blockchain technologies. Okay, so in this case, what the framework allows is a set of peer-to-peer enablers. So that is a base configuration and deployment of our peer-to-peer marketplace enabler tool, which is actually a distribution, a custom distribution of Hyperledger Fabric that you will be able to deploy, and where you will be able to get access to a set of smart contract templates for you to have a demo made interoperable using this decentralized capability, while still being able to relate with other services on our framework that do not necessarily use blockchain. All of these while using the same type of approach to map data into our semantic capability. So in essence, what we provide here is a Hyperledger Fabric interoperability adapter and the tool for Hyperledger to be deployed and for you to relate to. So there is then this relationship with the wider components of the framework that we have here deployed. So as a final slide, I would also like to present what we have already worked on and provided in this service, for you to also feel a little bit comfort with the developments that have already been done in the project in itself. So by now, internal to our project, we have made available 66 services into our service store from our internal pilots and partners. We have already worked and have a distribution for all of these components, particularly for the adapter and for the wider semantic interoperability framework. We have already, for the sake of the peer-to-peer marketplace capabilities, the Hyperledger Fabric deployment ready to be used by you. We have, in the sake of the security part, what we call a security and privacy plan methodology that we will be able to provide to you in order to help you to make the right decisions on how, for the case of your demonstration, to choose each one of these tools from the framework you want to use, in what setup, and what are then the security constraints that you will need to take into account for the final preparation of your prototype. During the project in itself and before reaching today, all of this software that makes part of the framework has been tested thoroughly by the partners themselves that are directly part of the technical developments that we did on our project, but also by the wide consortium of InterConnect. And this culminated with the documentation that we have available, with our technical support, and also with a set of video tutorials that are currently now available on our wiki page. And so before closing this presentation and also allowing for some space for you to pose some questions if you do have them, I would like to go to our wiki page, which is available on the URL that Funding Box in this case has made available. I will just change the screen. And what you are seeing here is the GitLab for InterConnect, that so for the coordinator of the project, where we have all of the information publicly available for how to make the integration and how to consult this throughout all of the process. So here you will see not only what are the project goals, how are we organized, and very importantly, how is the ontology that InterConnect is basing its developments on, so SAREF, how it was expanded, and how you will be able to come to this place and understand how your data will have to be transformed in order to use this methodology. Without going any further, I would also like to go to the last part, which where you will be able to check into more detail what is actually the way on how technically this integration and how data flows by using this approach that I was just stating. So by resembling to the service logic and to the service adapter and to the wider framework by using the adapter in itself. You will also find some important tutorial videos on the last part of these wiki page. The first one also providing a sneak peek of the framework in itself in a short video resembling the content that I have just presented on the webinar today. And very importantly, a second video that will show you in technical detail how the technical integration will look like. Okay, so this will provide you a sneak peek on how to boot our generic adapter, on how to perform this technical translation of the data into the approach of our framework, and a demonstration on two services exchanging data in our interoperable approach. Okay, so I will invite you all to come to our wiki page, okay, to consult all of these materials, and in particularly to watch these videos offline, as they will provide you this guidance onto what specifically the technical integration looks like in order for you to be comfortable with the type of work that you will have to do. There is also, finally, before I close, important information. Please also go to the website of the project. It is also available in the materials that Funding Box is providing for the open calls, to check what is the scope of our pilots, and to try to there understand where is interesting to you to have your pilots being made interoperable and demonstrated ideally on the field together with the teams of those pilots. So from my side, this is what I wanted to present with you. I do hope that we do have some questions and of course some space to provide some answers. Okay, so thank you for listening. Raquel.
Hello, thank you, Fabio. Well, now I guess that we will see if we have questions. Let's see.
We do have a question.
Okay, Ines, please go ahead.
Yeah, we have a question from Domenico Scalera, and he says, how can we find the services that are already in place for a pilot that we are interested with? Going into the details, we would like to apply for the Portugal pilot. We would like to know if there is already a service with a generic adapter which talk with the charging stations.
So the correct place for that information to be found is on the service store. So what we will need to do is to provide actually that catalog widely available. And what we will do is we will provide also via the information on this GitLab. An account that you will be able to use to log into the service store and to view the services that are available there. Moreover, there is also information about the look-like of the type of services and the use cases that each one of the pilots is sponsoring on the public documentation of the project. So that is available publicly in the project website under the section of documents. And we have their deliverables for the section of work package 1. We can, of course, then afterwards post this information directly here on GitLab for the sake of ease, where all of the details of each one of the use cases is available so that you can consult in detail. Regarding the second question on the availability of services already with the generic adapters for charging stations, there will be one particular use case with that integration available for some EV chargers on a set of supermarkets. Okay, so that will be made available there, so you will have that possibility to interface with them.
Thank you, Fabio. I don't know, Ines, if we have any other questions.
No, we don't. But Domenico says thank you.
For Domenico, we will afterwards upload that information under our useful links part of the wiki, including this information about the URL of the project website and where this information is actually, so you will be able to then come here and to check in more detail how the pilots look like.
Okay. Yeah, Ines.
Yeah, there is a question from Francesco Garaldi. He's asking if the presentations will be available.
For our part, yes.
Yes. They will be available on the open call link. Yes. Well, if we have no further questions, then I just would like to thank everyone for attending, and Fabio also for your detailed explanations. Thank you very much, everyone, and let's stay in touch through the community.
Thank you all.
Thank you.